took our...
In another area.
Yeah, that's what another good point. Potting in another area, fooling the four-legged creatures and the six-legged creatures as well, which are insects. Move your stuff in another area always tends to confuse them. And we do that a lot with one particular vegetable, a summer-type vegetable, and that would be squash. Squash beetles get confused when you're planting over here, one area, and then another section around your house, and you know they won't annihilate the crop that way totally.
But food plotting for the animals too.
Food plotting. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So it's causing a distraction basically away from animals. And how many have tried to grow broccoli? Anybody? Have you had good success with it? Raise your hand. Anybody? Okay. So about a third of you had success. What do you think the problem is around here with growing broccoli? The soil? What? Cabbage worms. Okay, we'll talk about cabbage worms. What do cabbage worms love? Cabbage, right? So, this gentleman has problems with growing broccoli and cabbage worms eating broccoli. What would you grow next to the broccoli? Cabbage. All right? That's a trap crop. We experimented with that. We planted 4 broccolis, 1 cabbage. 4 broccolis, 1 cabbage. You know, broccolis will take up about that space, so we do that, and we have a trap crop of cabbage. And it worked. They stayed away for the most part of the cabbage, and they just attacked and devoured that broccoli. All right? And then we just dispose of the cabbage worms and cabbage altogether as a trap crop. Just kill them all. Without pesticides, huh?
You said that backwards. They ate the cabbage.
They ate the cabbage. I'm sorry. Did I? Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. So trap crops solves a lot of issues. Another trap crop that we've used successfully is just a wild herb called pigweed. It's an amaranth that grows wild around in Arkansas. It may grow wild here, or you can just buy some amaranth from the seed store up there. And so somebody called and asked me one time about, what do you do about cucumber beetles? Well, just plant some amaranth as a border around your cucumbers. They'll go for that more than the cucumbers will. Another thing that I'm trying with cucumber beetles, which carry a disease in their gut, and when they chew the cucumbers, they pass that disease on, whether it's a virus or any other pathogens. What I'm trying to rig up now in a tent about this size, I have cables running across, and I'm going to put row covers. How many know what row covers are? That's what I have on hand. Good. People are experimenting with this. You can use netting, but they're kind of expensive. But I have some row covers on hand and big long sheets of it. I'm going to pin those things up on each side of my cucumbers. But cucumbers need pollination, right? So what do? You grow cucumbers that are female flowered or have female fruit or flowers that make fruit, right? For greenhouses. So you don't have to ever worry about taking those things off. Baker Creek, I think, has 2 varieties of greenhouse cucumbers. You can just go on the website, rareseeds.com if you have a computer, and look on there in the filter there, and you can just type in on the top of the search bar, just say greenhouse cucumbers, and it'll come up with 1 or 2 there that you'll see. And we use different varieties. I use a couple hybrids too, but because they just tend to grow, regular cucumbers are quick, and actually they're cold tolerant. And Johnny Seeds actually carries those. I think they call them Corinth or just a Corinth, I think it is. You can see me afterwards. I'll tell you what it is. But anyway, so you solve problems like that. You try to eliminate the situation or change the environment. Pests, you can actually call or explain it in a sense of a triangle. You have on one corner, or one side, I should say, of a triangle as your cause or pathogen. On the bottom, you could say environment, and on the last remaining side of your disease triangle, it would be the host. The host is what the cause or the problem tends to feast upon. And you can change any one of those things. You can change your environment to stop the problem over here of the pathogen. Just by covering your tomatoes and keeping water off of them and hosing them down on the leaves, you can change the effects of like a particular fungus that tends to actually swim in the water, like downy mildew, which comes under the leaves of plants like cucumbers. So by changing...
Cover the tomatoes?
No, well, you can cover it by keeping rainwater off of it. I was just going to get to that. And using drip tape. So you're not spraying your water and constantly wetting the foliage, promoting this particular fungus. It's a waterborne fungus. It actually has a little tail that swims on the plant leaf and tries to go into the porous parts of the leaf. And the problem with leaves these days is people tend to over-fertilize with nitrogen. And when you over-fertilize with nitrogen, what happens to a plant? Anybody? Makes a lot of leaves. The cells enlarge. It gives you larger leaves. It gets weaker as well. When you stretch out that plant, the pores get weaker, allowing fungus and mildews to get in there. And we're talking about brute force. They use brute force, these little spores with their little tails, they just go right through that pore of that leaf. And then you got your infection. So try to stop watering above. And that's why we grew a lot of cucumbers, these sensitive types of plants like cucumbers, tomatoes, that get these blights under cover if you can do it. And have drip tape. You can buy it cheaply, and I think even Walmart has some drip hoses that you can even use. And we use, some people don't like using plastic mulch, but we use it, try to use it two or three times in 3 or 4 seasons, and just keep laying it out. And that keeps the splash of the soil from getting on the plants as well from the rain. You can use that outside, but we use it also inside. So you got your laid out, I got my irrigation right there on the ground, the mulch over the top to keep the weeds off as a weed barrier, keep the soil from being splashed and kicked around on the leaves. Then I got the plant growing up there away from the soil, and I don't water on the top. And I tested that many years, and it works. I've had late blight issues of tomatoes outside and versus inside, and never had a problem inside. Reduces the disease by 70%. So these are just things that just changing the environment that you have will help with causing like such things as fungus, waterborne fungus, from not being active on your plants. This kind of fungus is everywhere. There's 100,000 species of fungus. About 8,000 are problematic for us out of that. So it's not very many, but it causes a lot of issues. And it's the #1 cause of death for plants in the world is fungus issues. That's why I'm bringing it up. It's a common thing. And if you have any other questions, you can call us at Baker Creek. I'm Fred, and you can email us over there, seeds@rareseeds.com, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions. I don't have time to go through all the different problems. There's so many different fungus issues.
My garden beds is getting full of ants. Causing it out to get rid of.
Yeah, you're going to have to get rid of the ants somehow. There's boron. There's some. If you have a computer, what I can do is give you a formula. If you email us, I can give you several formulas on what to do with ants. But you got to get rid of those if you can, because I'll let the audience here answer. What is the problem when you have ants in your garden? What's the next thing you look for? Aphids. All right, so the ants herd the aphids around and basically milk them for their little sap, honeydew saps on the rear end of them, and that's how they, it's kind of a community working there together. The aphid is like the cow, and the ant milks the cow, and they take that honeydew and they store it for their young, and so they work together and protect, and they can get quite vicious. Those ants get protective. They don't let any beneficial insects come into that plant, and pretty soon they overrun your whole garden if you're not careful. So Borax, there's different formulas you can use. I can't remember, Jim?
I have heard that if you just use the borax laundry detergent,
Yeah.
it does the same thing and a lot cheaper than the borax formula you can buy
Right.
in the nurseries.
Yeah, that's why I say there's a recipe I'd like to give you. If you can just email and just ask for Fred, I'll see if I can get you a couple of different ideas on that. Some people use like cornmeal, I believe grits. I think it is. I've never used it. Has anybody ever used grits to? Does it work?
Supposedly it does work.
Yeah, they blow up inside. It expands in their gut, and the ants blow up inside. They can't handle it. So there's different ways naturally to control these pests that get in.